Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Empower Ed, the place where you're going to get nuggets of information to help you be the best educator that you possibly can be, empowered to do big things in this tough, ever-changing world, right? This week, I want to talk about something that came on my Chat GPT feed as I was working on all of the things. Now, I have gotten pretty good at using Chat GPT. I have created my bot, so to speak, that is aligned with who I am as a person, as a leader, as an entrepreneur. They have been able to review sample chapters of my book or books, a couple of the books. They have seen the outline for my TED Talk. They have been able to see listings of different programs that I have and then the PowerPoints that go with them. So they kind of get a feel for my voice. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do we have adjustments to make? Of course. There are some times where I go, oh, that is not what I wanted at all. And then but I can take the idea and I can kind of run with it. And then there are times where I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this bot knows exactly what I'm thinking right now. I have not done a lot of work with AI in the world of education yet, but I have been dabbling just a little bit on a couple of things. One, starting to design bots that might be able to help with lesson planning. Of course, it's not going to take the human factor out of it. I don't want it to, because as teachers, we are important, right? We learned that during COVID. But I also know as teachers, we have a lot on our plate. And if there's a way that we can design a system that could help us with that, that could be amazing. It really could. I also know that here in Texas in particular, I don't know where you might be listening from, but our writing on state assessments has now been, and also our listening or our speaking pieces on our um, assessments that measure English language acquisition for our second language learners, they're both being evaluated by AI in some form or fashion. And I actually listened to a podcast this week. Dr. Riley, can't remember her last name, but I was on her podcast as well. So I tune in every week. And she was speaking with a group that specifically was talking about this and how their district has embraced using AI because assessments are being now graded in this manner, and it's a whole different world. It just so happened that the day I was listening to that podcast, I was actually working on some data analysis from our test scores, and everything aligned. And I don't know if it's just because it was out there and now my brain's looking for it, but everything aligned. My students who took we call it TELPAS here in Texas, that's our Texas English Language Proficiency assessments, we have seen a drop in their speaking scores, or they're staying stagnant. We had some students that improved, but I think, and this is the first year of AI, totally um, grading those assessments, scoring those assessments, I think we're seeing a shift right now, right? I also noticed the same thing with writing, and even more interesting when I look at our preliminary STAR assessment data, which is our regular assessment here in the state of Texas. The writing is interesting. The writing itself, the composition piece that the students have to complete, and the actual multiple choice questions that are aligned with our writing TEKS. And it could be a reflection on we didn't do a good job, right? Let me back up. Not that we didn't do a good job. We didn't teach the students the way they needed to be taught in order to be able to secure the knowledge and be able to apply it to their assessment. Or maybe our instruction didn't align with the actual rigor of the test, right? Or maybe the scoring is so different and we didn't realize it. And then, of course, it could be a combination of all three, which I think is really where this is kind of falling into place. Now, this is early data, so I don't know if this is a trend across the state, but I'm going to be interested and I will keep you posted on what I learn. Writing is something that I pride myself in knowing that I was able to increase writing test scores in the past when we had a different system. It was still STAR, but it was just assessed differently. I've also been able to provide some good writing training to teachers that I've worked with. And I also feel like I'm a pretty good writer. I mean, I'm an Amazon international bestselling author, so kind of people like my writing, right? But having said that, going back to this whole AI thing, my question then becomes, is AI moving forward faster in the world of education than we are as educators? And if it is, are the people that are doing the early adoption of AI within their classroom, are we using it appropriately? Or are we just, oh, here is this tool, go forth and conquer? Or are we really taking the time to understand it and be able to implement it as what it is? And that is a tool that can help us all be our best. Somebody said recently, and I can't remember what I was watching. I was watching something. If it was a YouTube, something, if it was a commercial on TV, I can't remember recently. But somebody said, do you miss maps? They were in a car. They were trying to plug in their destination in their GPS. And the passenger turned and said, do you miss maps? And the driver was a bit younger than the passenger. And the driver kind of looked a little bit confused. And my perception was the driver probably wasn't used to using maps because our GPS now, our phones, our cars, and all of the things have come along so quickly. I'm not saying as educators, we need to be that passenger saying, do we miss maps and go back to that? I do believe that there is a purpose for paper pencil tasks in education. I do believe that that is not something we just have to get rid of. I do believe we also have to be able to teach our students how to do both, right? And I also believe that there's a time and place for each. So it makes me start to think, digging into and learning more about this whole AI thing and how it can actually enhance what we're doing is going to be important. The last school that I was the principal, we had in our district started to do some different thinking to where schools had more of a specialty. And as we were planning it, my school was going to be a technology-based school. And at first, people were wanting our kids, and it was just so bizarre. It felt like they wanted us to stop teaching traditional curriculum and embed all of that curriculum into coding. And that would be for math and for science. And I just couldn't see how it could completely replace. And as we started to work through this process, we finally got to that place, right? Right on the edge of the cliff, so to speak, where everybody went, whoa, slow down. It's an elementary school. Sure, coding might be something really cool and fun for our kids to know at this age. However, we also have an assessment that we're required to take with the state, and we are labeled a certain level of school, performing school, based on that assessment. And just moving over to coding is not going to work. But it took us time and effort and brain power to be able to get everybody on board to say, whoa, 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 let's hold on here. And I think that that is kind of where things seem to be right now with the latest advances in technology. Everybody wants to dive into the deep end, but do we know how to swim? So my message for this week is going to be short, but really, as we are going through this time in the world where AI is not going to go away, right? It's here to stay. But we also have to think about the history of teaching and learning. And when we were in the COVID era, especially for the littles, it might be a little different for our older children, but I think there still needs to be some parameters in that respect too. We have to be intentional about our own learning as educators, about our implementation, not about doing everything that's shiny and new, right? Because we know that's not going to work. And be able to put some parameters on this so that it really does become a tool moving forward and not just a feel of this is taking over, which I know will appease some of you out there, because if you're in my age group out there in the world, or just even a little younger, this might be a weird thing, right? And then for those of you who are just getting out of college and you're thinking like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But just remember, there are still some other systems that might not be 100% there. So let's plan to talk about this often. I think this is definitely something we need to put as a priority, but I also think that we need to do this with intention. So my commitment to you over the next year, 2 years, as we come onto these sessions, is to continue to learn and grow myself so that I know how I can support teachers, how I can support leaders in implementing this through their campuses, but also how I support myself and build my own experiences with this to be able to share my wisdom and expertise. And then I also want to hear from all of you. If you're utilizing something that is within the artificial intelligence world and you're finding it to be very beneficial, and you've had an intentional plan of putting it in place, I'd love to hear from you. If you're a district out there that you're really taking this moving forward, as I am building the programs that I'm building, especially thinking about the alternative certification program that I'm applying to the state of Texas, to get to be a provider, an educator preparation program provider. I want as much knowledge as I can with this and to hear from people. So reach out to me. You know how to get me. You can reply just here on the YouTube episode. You can email me, sherryDixonConsulting@gmail.com. But I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I think that this is something that definitely needs to be on our minds and something that we need to continue to learn and grow and be very intentional about how we are implementing it with our students. All right, y'all, have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see y'all next week right back here on Empowered Educator.